It's an honor for me to be on the show this week, and it is even greater honor to have this man on the show. He is a Superstars for Sandy auction winner and a big wrestling fan. He also appeared on Monday Night Raw alongside Tons of Funk. Please welcome Scotty Campbell.
Hello, Brandon and Grady. Thank you all.
Howdy.
It's a great honor to have you on the show.
I'm very honored to be on with you guys. You've been doing, how many episodes are you up to now?
22.
Yep,
22. Wow, they sure climb awfully fast, don't they?
Yeah.
So my first question is, what made you want to bid on the Superstars for Sandy auction?
Well, I've been watching the WWE since I was probably in diapers or somewhere around that time. And I saw this as an opportunity to do two things. Number one, allow me to help those in need after Hurricane Sandy. You know, to give a financial contribution that could help those people begin to rebuild. And secondly, as a lifelong fan, it would give me an opportunity to appear live on Monday Night Raw on WWE programming. And no, I'm not one that typically dances in my personal life, but it was the avenue I had to get me on the show and to get the experience. So that's the reason, of course, that I was able to do that.
Speaking about being on Monday Night Raw, what was like the whole big experience? Who were like the people you met?
Oh, big experience. I was told to report to the backstage area about 5 hours before the beginning of Monday Night Raw. And Brandon, they had me spend several hours in the catering room, and I'm sure you have heard about WWE's catering and all the stars being in there for that time. But I went in and got some food, sat down at the table, and the table was, there were several small tables, but anyway, over time, different people came over. One of the first people at my table was Mike the Miz, you know, the one who claims to be so awesome. And we had a good time talking to Mike. He, or the Miz, I guess I should say. The Miz is a nice guy. He was showing us pictures on his phone. He's about to get married to Maurice. You remember her? That used to be a WWE diva. And he was showing us pictures of the place he wants to get married at in the Bahamas, and they had just gotten back from there. We spent time talking to members of the Shield, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns. Let's see, who else came over? Jerry the King Lawler sat down at the table for a while. And, you know, over here in the U.S., he's just opening up a new museum at a casino. So that would be a lot of fun to a lot of people. But had a good discussion at the table there. And one of the big shocks for me was the big man, Mr. Mark Henry. He sat down, and we had an absolute blast. I never dreamed he would be one to eat a turkey burger. Do you guys have those? Okay. Yeah, he had a turkey burger, and I think it was a diet A&W brand root beer. But in addition to the catering, I had to go in and do an interview on camera, and then had to do a rehearsal for my performance, for my dance routine. And when I went out to the WWE ring, the audience, the fans, had not been turned into the building yet. And the superstars were out there with me. So many, almost every member of the roster that was in the room saw my first run through with Brodus Clay, Sweet Tea, and the Funkadactyls, Tons of Funk. And I assure you guys, the first one was extremely rough, but we improved upon that. And just really had a great time. It's amazing the number of people that are backstage and the number of people that produced a Monday Night Raw.
That's such a great story. To my understanding, Grady has a few questions for you as well.
Okay.
Okay. How long have you been a fan of the wrestling sort of business?
Well, really, almost my entire life. I'm 29 years old now. And I grew up watching Jim Crockett Promotions, the National Wrestling Alliance, the NWA, the WWF, World Wrestling Federation. And I was a big fan of a tag team that you guys are probably tremendously familiar with, especially in New Zealand, formerly known as the Sheep Herders, the Bushwhackers.
Woo!
And my father and I still talk about great memories of seeing those guys in the World Wrestling Federation from the early 90s. I stopped watching in about 93 and stopped for about 10 years, but then I started going to some legend shows where I could see the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, Terry Funk, the Rock and Roll Express, Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express, and others. And that's what got me back into watching the WWE on television and going to various independent shows throughout the southeastern United States.
Okay, well, clearly you've been a fan for the golden era and the new era. How would you say those two eras sort of compare?
Oh my goodness. Well, the big 80s boom, I'll call it, the 1980s, early 90s. Of course, it was a different time. There was a much larger percentage of people around the world watching the wrestling product at that time, had a much bigger viewing audience. A personal opinion, I enjoy the antics of the 80s. For example, the steel chairs, the powder, going into somebody's eye, those old school tactics, the bleeding from the forehead and the blading and all those things. In terms of the modern day product, it's certainly more dramatic, more soap opera-ish. And I know that here in the U.S., the USA Network pretty much told Mr. McMahon their request. The CEO, Bonnie Hammer of the network, told him that they wanted it to be more like a soap opera over the past several years, and sure enough, that's the route that the WWE has taken it. Let me just say it works. There are some other aspects I would like to see worked into the product. I wish, Grady, the WWE today would have more managers. I really find managers entertaining, and I think they add an element to the stories, especially with the types of stories that they're trying to tell today, and using less of those old school tactics and more talking. So I think that the manager is making a little bit of a comeback with Zeb Coulter and Mr. Paul Heyman and Vicky Guerrero to a degree. And I noticed that Ricardo Rodriguez just started managing RVD. So that's an element I think that they can capitalize on and expand on and further improve today's product. So overall, it's, they're a lot different, a whole lot different, but certainly it's all about entertainment and putting smiles on people's faces, and I think they're still getting the job done in that regard.
Cool. You got another question, Brandon?
Yeah. My friend Josh, me and Grady, our friend Josh, he was wondering where you got that nice, sweet SC outfit you wore on Monday Night Raw, because he was really interested in getting one for himself.
Gotcha. Well, tell your friend there. Here's the story. I showed up at Monday Night Raw in dress clothes, which was what WWE had told me to do. So those were my marching orders, and I showed up in dress pants and a dress shirt, of course. And at rehearsal, Triple H looked at me and he basically said, "Scotty, what are you going to wear when you dance out with Tons of Funk on Raw?" And I'm like, well, I thought about getting a suit made, but instead I was told to wear business casual. He was like, "Oh, hey guys, get Scotty a suit." So he had some of the production type people, I guess maybe a writer's assistant and others, get together with the seamstress in the back. And within about an hour or two, I had that completely embroidered tracksuit, complete with my big SC initials for Scotty Campbell. So Triple H is how I got that. I can tell you it is Nike brand. So that was made on site. And I'm sure they, picked up the Nike outfit at a nearby store of some sort and then had the seamstresses work on it in the back. And I find it fascinating. I got confirmation on Twitter. The lady that did Stone Cold Steve Austin's gear is the same lady that finished up my tracksuit for me, my jumpsuit. So
Wow.
I thought that was a neat thing there, but I have it. It's in my closet, and I'd love to be able to use it again someday. It was a tremendous moment to be able to be in front of those 13,000 plus people in an arena, in a WWE ring. That was a dream come true, and to know that it was being broadcast internationally on television had added a whole nother element and dynamic to the feeling. I told myself during the show when I was in that ring making complete total dancing fool of myself in tons of fun. I stood there while we were in motion, and I just thought, wow, I'm really here. I remember telling myself that I'm really here. And so many performers from the past that I've respected, just to know that they've been in that ring and danced in a similar fashion, like the American Dream Dusty Rhodes and the Honky Tonk Man. Those are two from the golden era that definitely come to mind when I'm out there, getting my dance on. And it's an opportunity I don't take for granted. Really glad I was able to do that, and I'd love to be a part of the company, guys. I've actually applied since 2007 to be a writer's assistant. I worked at a radio station and worked as an on-air DJ and a producer, and I thought that, coupled with my past political experience and WWE product knowledge, might help me get a foot in the door. But we've not quite gotten there, but I'm going to keep trying.
It was great having you on the show, Scotty. I really enjoyed you telling your stories, and it really, really told me how big of a fan you are.
Do I?
It was such a great experience having you on the show, and I really hope maybe we can do this again in the future.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. And I want to invite your listeners to join the conversation on Twitter. My username is Scotty Campbell, and the number 1 after that.
Go follow him on Twitter, everyone.
Yep. Okay, well, great having you on.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.